Well, it's the end of the year, and we're not only waiting on school pupils' reports. Cabinet's performance scorecards will be submitted to President Cyril Ramaphosa by the end of this month. This was revealed by Minister Mondli Gungubele yesterday, responding to a question from the DA. The Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation leads the process. The scorecards are currently with the ministers for their comments. In the meantime, let's find out how political analyst Sanusha Naidu rates Ramaphosa's ministers. Sanusha, thank you so much for your time. Maybe not the best year for cabinet, but were there any shining lights in President Ramaphosa's cabinet for you?
Good day, Tafuma, and good day to your viewers. It's difficult to say. I think the shining light may have been more on his reaction to the way in which the global vaccine diplomacy took place, the fact that there's been a kind of disaggregated approach to vaccine rollout in Africa, the cost of vaccines, the fact that in the last few weeks he came out very strongly against the kind of barriers that we see in the global economy, and the travel bans. I think that was more on the international front, which kind of showed some kind of spotlight on his presidency. But I think on the domestic front, he was confronted by many, many different and difficult structural conditions. Also, he has a cabinet where he's not necessarily he has to balance it out between stakeholder relations with the tripartite alliance partners, but also in terms of his relations within the party, who's in, who's out. There's been a few interesting discussions or reactions to some of the programs he wants to roll out, particularly with the energy minister, in terms of whether they were on the same page. So it's a difficult one to score right now. So I think you got to score him on particular areas around performance. But I think at the end of the day, on aggregate, some news agencies are scoring him around 50%, but I think it's around between 4.5 and 50%. It's a difficult one to do, because also bearing in mind that he has to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic.
And when you look at his cabinet, is there anyone who exceeded expectations for you?
Not necessarily, no. I think it's been quite a subpar performance. It's been lackluster. I think the challenges are that in terms of what the presidency is like, what the cabinet is like, there's been much more about how they are doing the firefighting. I think if people have to pick up on key issues for this year, we're looking to see how accountability has been rolling out. We're looking to see who's going to take responsibility. For example, the July riots in terms of where we are now. We haven't seen much on that front. Looking at the question of just looking at your insert around the petrol price issue and the way in which the subsidy and the pricing takes place. The fact of the matter is that economically we started 2021 in the same way that we're going to end 2021. So I think at the end of the day, it's very difficult, because I think it's one that whilst there are circumstances beyond the control of cabinet ministers, there's also questions here about where we are. I mean, this just didn't happen under COVID. This is actually a crisis that has been in place for the longest time ever before COVID. And I think some of the ministers there have also defied COVID regulations. And the question was the sanction that the president had given them enough? So I think at the end of the day, the question is, in the situation that we have, there are certain ministers that are new in their position, so they're still finding their feet. But I think those that are there haven't really performed in a way that you can say, oh yeah, they've done what they could do. If you take a minister that is there, it's something like, if you look at the economic finance minister, he's new in that position, so it's hard to judge him right now. But again, we have to look and see how the structural conditions and how the country goes forward.
So I tried to start with the positive side of this coin to see if there's anyone who did well. It seems like there isn't. So let's look at who failed dismally then, in your mind. Well,
I think, some of the ministers that could have done better in terms of communication, in terms of performance. Look at the security cluster. Look at the way in which certain of the issues unfolding in the security cluster. The police minister, I think, could have been better. There's the tension with his police commissioner. There's these conflicting issues around the July question. Some of the ministers have been moved. You look at the current National Speaker of Parliament, you look at the former Minister of Health. I mean, there's been a lot of issues here. And I think the question of accountability, the question of corruption, the PPE tender scandals, all of this comes to the fold. I think on spectrum, in telecoms as well, we could have seen a better way in which that was managed. We're still seeing that issue being kicked down the road. So there are a few ministers there that also have their hands tied. I think on the economic front as well, in terms of looking at the performance contracts that the president signed. He wants to treat this as a business enterprise. There's performance appraisal, KPIs. We could actually see that come up much further up the line in terms of giving us a 6 months review of ministers' performance. He made a lot of commitments in the State of the Nation address. He's made commitments in terms of his family meetings as well. But I think at the end of the day, there was a lot of lag time in this. So I think there are certain ministries that could have done better in terms of communication, in terms of performance. And there are certain ministries, I think, just inherited a lot of serious constraints, a lot of issues, that governance deficits and institutional voids that they have to deal with.
All right, Sanusha, thank you so much for giving us that point of view. Political analyst Sanusha Naidu joining us on Newslink. Coming up.